Hey, welcome to Clean Radio. It's Easter. Hey, Judah, how are you doing?
I'm great. Happy Easter to you.
Yeah? What else is there besides
Andrew,
Easter?
you do have gum in your mouth.
Oh, I do.
And,
Oh, yeah, it's part of the Easter holiday.
you know I'm gummophobic.
It's not the...
You know that's one of my things.
It's not the bunny. I just got the gum.
Yeah, you do love that bunny, though.
I
The
do.
chocolate.
I don't get the chocolate bunny, though.
I don't want to sell. I don't want to, break, give them advertisement, but that is the best chocolate ever.
Oh,
the
what?
eggs.
The
Yeah,
Cadbury
talk about
mini eggs.
addiction.
Yeah, how many pounds of those did we eat one day? It was
A lot.
I think we're officially chocolate-holics.
We are. Can I say, let's talk about something very interesting, because I know there are a lot of women out there that listen to our show.
Right.
Is there such, growing up, I don't want to break somebody in my family's anonymity,
Right.
But
I will.
But I will. Right. But is there such a thing as chocolate? I know there's sugar addiction.
Chocoholic.
So is that a real thing, or is that something we just joke?
Of course it is. Well, caffeine and sugar, the combination. In fact, chocolate is considered a drug.
Okay. Because I used to this is no joke. I used to go into different compartments in my house, whether it was looking for towels or toilet paper, and every once in a while I'd find chocolate hidden in certain places. And I love my mother. And she's actually recovered from that. And she's no longer she sought Choca-help.
Choca-help.
Yeah, Choca-help. And but so there is. What do you do for something like that?
Well, it's similar, I guess, to Overeaters Anonymous or any eating disorder. I mean, if you really become, eating chocolate to the point where you're gaining so much weight from it that it becomes extremely unhealthy, that's something you want to change.
Or you're hiding it.
Hiding it is an example of hoarding behavior and denial that you have a problem with it, or shame that you don't want others to know that you're eating it. So, yeah, it's the same that we see with people that drink alcohol. They begin to have that hiding and hoarding type of experience.
I have just so broken my mother's anonymity. So please say something about your mother.
My mother, what should I say? Yeah. I don't know. Happy Easter, Mom.
And,
I'm the good son this week.
It's also Passover, so happy Passover, because they actually go on the same day. But also we want to welcome our, the people listening on News Talk 980 KFWB, also on 760 KFMB San Diego, 1600 WWRL New York. And
of course, our loyal listeners on the internet. We actually maxed out our internet stream, I think, last week, so we've added some more channels, I believe. But that's great. So you can listen to us on cleanradio.com, and if you click on the button there's a live stream. You can actually hear us live online.
And so let's talk about something very important, because it is Easter, it is Passover, and this is a hard time of the year for people and families, whether you're going through something with with a son, a husband. When things aren't right, they're exacerbated. Please say
exacerbated.
I sound like I'm saying another word.
Exacerbated.
This is one of those words I have a hard time saying. You say it on exacerbated on the holidays, and your mother will come down on me on that one.
Right.
And what are some good tips for people?
Well, I don't think it's any different than any other issue that we talk about. It's recognizing the problem, being aware that you're going to be in a situation where the problem is going to be more available, or the substance or the thing that you have an issue with is going to be more readily available.
Right.
And to take this, normal precautions that you normally do, have replacements.
Right.
Try to be conscious of what you're doing. Try to regulate your behavior.
And probably a good idea is have it, if you're sober in the 12 steps in any form, probably have a meeting set up that you could go to in case of emergency.
Yeah, have someone you can call.
Right.
I'm going to eat a bunny.
Well, that's probably a good idea, too. Carry a bag of bunnies.
Yeah, carry a bag. Have a bunny replation.
Yeah, have a bunny replacement. So if you're going through a rough time.
Maybe they have sugar-free marshmallow bunnies. I didn't see any
How
this
good
year,
could those be?
Terrible, but at least it gives you something to chew on.
Yeah, and then you won't even want to drink anything after, because the taste is so bad in your mouth.
That's right. You get so sick you won't actually eat anymore.
I got to be honest. I don't get the sugar-free thing. I don't. I actually absolutely love your.
I think it's good for diabetes.
Oh, but yet again, they need a certain amount of sugar in the daytime.
What?
You constantly see diabetics carrying around bags of Skittles or something.
Well, that's not a good idea. I mean, you're getting enough sugars out of the regular foods that you eat. Carbohydrate converts to sugar, and therefore you get sugar in your system. So keeping enough insulin in your system just to self-regulate normal ingestion of food is difficult for most diabetics, especially type 1. And then type 2, having a very healthy lifestyle from a dietary standpoint, it's important to regulate your blood sugar through diet. So
okay, and if you just tuned in, you're listening to Clean Radio Live. We're in the studio tonight, and Andrew, you have a lot of experience. I mean, you have 20 some odd years of just experience in mental health.
Thanks for aging me.
Well, it's aging, and it's okay. It's just aging.
I was one of those child prodigies. I started at 5.
Yes, you're Doogie. You're Andrew Doogie.
Andrew Hauser.
Andrew Hauser. And but you have a lot of experience. And the other day I went to, and this is an issue that's so near and dear to our heart. Obviously, you run Klean Treatment Center, and I happen to think it's the best dual diagnosis program in America. And I got asked by a father to go, to a sober living and check on his son that's going through a rough time. So I go to pick up the son, and he's really shaky.
Mm-hmm.
The kid's really shaky, and we go to get some Subway, and the kid tells me, "Oh, I didn't take my medicine for 2 days."
Right.
And
so when you say dual diagnosis, he had a mental health issue as well.
Right, as well as addiction, right? So, and I've learned so much of this stuff from you that he's been treating his mental illness, so much of it with, weed, LSD, all these, drugs to treat his...
He probably had a mood disorder.
I think he's got a lot of this. He's been to so many places, so many his parents have sent him to Harvard, to get assessed. Right. He's also been on ADD drugs since he's 5 years old.
Well, that's a mood disorder. So
okay, my best suggestion to his father was
actually, I think it's actually classified as an anxiety disorder. I think I got that wrong.
Okay, that's what you're allowed.
Yeah,
and you're human.
It might even be a thought disorder.
Okay, this is way too. But what is it's very complicated because yes, he's an addict. You can't, we know once you become a pickle, you can't become a cucumber. So it doesn't really matter what came first, the mental, the disorder or the addiction and alcoholism, or does it?
Well, in terms of identification of problems and early onset, it would be better that, if people start with a mental health disorder, that they get that treated so they don't actually become an addict through trying to self-regulate their emotions or their thoughts with, drugs that are illicit or even legal like alcohol.
Right.
But instead they get proper medication, and therefore they don't have to, become readily addicted to illicit substances or even, like I said, legal substances like alcohol. But sometimes that doesn't happen, and people become addicted first, and then they get secondary onset of depression or thought disorders or delusional behavior.
As a result of the drugs?
Yeah, we see, drug-induced psychosis. We see, chronic anxiety, panic disorder, depression. All these things come hand in hand often with addiction. So once you're at that point where you have a mental health disorder and you have an addiction, it doesn't really matter which one came first.
Right. I love that you say that. I think it is so important that you say that because I think that's been the biggest problem in the field of treatment facilities.
Right.
And I don't want to sound like an infomercial.
Well, the question is really, though, is can you get someone sober and then will that relieve the mental health issue?
Or vice versa.
And so, unfortunately, with addiction, we can't just relieve the mental health disorder and then the addiction goes away. Once you're sort of an addict, like you said, you're going to have that problem ongoing. But like I said, it doesn't really matter whether you know what caused the initial problem at that point.
Right.
Once you're already addicted and self-medicating, you're addicted and self-medicating. So, that has to be taken out of the equation.
And then, and also, what is it with, so he stops taking his drugs, which I'm sure you've seen is a huge problem with.
It's the number one problem with behavioral health intervention. So when people have problems with mental health, the number one problem that we have with patients and clients is that they stop taking their medication or they don't take their medication as prescribed. And that makes it very hard to get the medications right and to keep the patient stabilized.
And it causes anger in the family. It causes
frustration
because
right.
because they can't understand. Just take your med.
Right. There's a repetitive cycle.
Right.
They seem to get better. They think they're better, so they stop taking their medication, and then they get worse again. And they don't realize they're getting worse again, but the family does. Family gets very upset and angry. So, getting the parents or the family members or the significant others to be involved in helping regulate and give out medication, that's a very helpful thing to do.
So that's a good technique. And I think that's important. That's a really important thing.
And it's hard to do. It's something that, you have to do it every day, sometimes 3 times a day. And, it's, like I said, it's the number one problem
right.
with helping people is keeping them on their medication. And, getting anybody to do anything 3 times a day is difficult.
Right.
So, it's making them understand how important it is to keep that regimen.
Okay, so there is hope, and I think
There's
that's
a lot
the
of
most
hope.
right. So I think that's the
Absolutely.
most important thing you're saying right now is there is hope as long as you do the things you're suggested to do as far as family and.
Absolutely.
Okay, by the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Klean Radio Live. That's Klean Radio Live. That's Klean with a K. You might be listening to us on News Talk, our flagship station, 980 KFWB Los Angeles, or 760 KFMB San Diego. And in New York, my hometown, 1600 WWRL New York. We have an amazing guest tonight.
Tell them how they can get us on Facebook.
Oh, that's a good
Don't
point.
forget that.
I don't want to forget us on Facebook. Go to Facebook.com. Or obviously go to Facebook, like us at Klean Radio. That's Klean with a K. You find out some really amazing things that's going on. We have some big news coming up about the show. And, leave your comments. It's really fun, and it's very interactive. And we understand a lot of times people don't want to call in with these questions.
Or with their problems.
Right.
So, it's a good way to reach us.
Yeah. Isn't that an amazing thing how we've come so far, yet we're like 10% maybe of how far we've come with taking the stigma away from people with mental health issues, alcoholism, addiction.
Absolutely. And I think a good person to address that with us is our guest, Bradley Quick. Welcome, Bradley.
Hey, guys. Happy Easter to you.
How are you doing? Yeah, thank you.
Happy Passover.
Come on now. I'm doing unbelievably well. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
We're doing good. Yeah, it's, except for my flat tire. That wasn't so good.
Oh, those damn potholes.
I know, right? What is it with LA and potholes? I think that, you get a traffic ticket for doing a wrong U-turn. If you hit a pothole, you should get a free tire.
You can't charge them, though.
Right?
They don't adhere to that at all. You
That's
can't
just
charge
wrong.
them at all.
We need
Are
a
you
public-
shocked that you can't charge the
I
LA?
I think they have I pay my taxes. They have the civic duty to fill the damn hole.
Yeah, why don't you tell them that? Because I'm sure
going to.
they're going to be extremely receptive.
Next time I speak, right?
Because I know Anthony Villaraigosa loves hearing from his constituents.
I'm going to send the mayor a bucket of asphalt.
Yeah, just so everybody out there, because we're heard all over the
But call
world.
the press before you do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, we're heard all over the world, and I want everybody to know in every city, you might have complaints against your city government, but here in LA, our grid system was built by alcoholics and crackheads. Okay, and not sober
No, it's
ones.
taken care of by alcoholics and
yeah,
crackheads.
you're right,
Yeah.
and it's right that aren't in sobriety probably,
Right.
and it's
Too busy smoking that crack.
Yeah, and they're not sober ones
yeah,
necessarily.
that's right. And I'm not into eminent domain, but the way they built the highways, I have no problem just taking over the sides of the roads here. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I would
That's funny.
just take over. And we're in the studio tonight and it's something extremely cool that we talk about. And I'm guessing The Quick Fix is Bradley Quick's book, The Quick Fix.
That's right.
And I'm guessing that has something to do with we live in a society of people that want the quick fix.
Well, everybody wants a quick fix. It's easier to take a quick fix than it is going after something that you're going to feel you're going to have to get in depth into, because everybody's looking for that immediate gratification. Fix me now. And that's what this is about. I mean, it's really the slow boat to China. But if the quick fix, the name the quick fix, and the idea of being quick and rapid and fast and in pace will get them into the book, then that's what it's all about. Because it brings people to health, healing, and happiness. Mm-hmm. Well, who isn't looking for health, healing, and happiness? Everybody wants
Actually,
that.
drug addicts. One of the things I was going to mention is it's so funny is that we talk about quick fix, fixing up, all all the metaphors that go along with that, but also. The idea that most drug addicts, they're looking for the quick fix, and then they're using a drug and they're not actually getting that relief.
Right, and this is about, the book is actually about, it was created by me, of course, and I started a foundation called the Cool Change Foundation in 2002, and what it's about is changing the dynamic through which recovery or self-discovery is perceived in this country to make that recovery or self-discovery an ambition as opposed to the shame-based stigma it is today. And we do that by talking to people's hearts, identification through association. So if we can touch somebody's heart through our experience and the experience that's put in the book and the tasks and the methods and the great opportunities that are laid out in that book, then we can get their heart and they can open up. They can open, as opposed to us trying to label them and tell them they have an issue and they got to eat drugs and they got to do this to get through this. We don't play that game.
So what is your sort of general treatment approach when you're dealing with someone with addiction? I mean, are you, purely abstinence-based? Do you believe that,
Well, it's purely abstinence, of course. We don't even give them psychotics or any other type of drugs, as many of the treatment centers do today, because the fact of the matter is that only 2% of the population that's prescribed antidepressants and such need it. The rest of them are given it because they want to put them in a state of mind where they're more receptive and less hostile.
Although I mean, 2% is a lot of people.
Well, of course, it's huge. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm talking about 2% of the population that are doing the drugs
that
today.
are currently taking
Yes,
antidepressants.
exactly.
Right.
You're talking about the placebo studies that have been done recently.
Well, recently they've been done forever, and a woman that wrote a chapter in my book, Dr. Hyla Cass, it talks about that very thing. She's a psychologist. She's a psychiatrist, and she doesn't prescribe drugs.
So tell people, because most people don't know are familiar with these studies or understand this concept. So what is sort of this idea that people actually aren't benefiting from taking antidepressants?
The fact of the matter is that the whole pharmaceutical game, the pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies are the two largest corporations in the whole world. Mm-hmm. They run this whole deal. And if you look at the commercials, for instance, talking about drugs, and a lot of those are mood elevators, right, or antidepressants. Mm-hmm. At the end of it, while you're listening to this great music, while you're watching this beautiful image on your screen, you're hearing them talk real quick about what could go wrong with you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You may lose your firstborn, your left leg may fall off, whatever it is. You may go crazy and you may die, but it's good. And that's how tricky and underhanded this is. And so, I know this show isn't about me bashing the drug companies, but it
seems to be.
But don't you think? No, I mean, and let's.
It's okay. I mean,
right.
I mean, I like diverse opinions.
Right.
I mean, I'm actually very much more favorable towards medication.
Medication has its place. Don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about it's highly abused, and they've got because once.
But that's where the danger, and I think Andrew, that's where the danger lies, is because we don't know. The scary thing is, you're right. Okay, so let's say you're right, and it's 2%. So we have 300 million people in America. 10% is 30 million.
Well, no, we're talking about 50% take antidepressants at some point in their life. Right. You're talking about a population of maybe 20 million right now that are actually taking antidepressants.
Could be
actively. So you're talking 2% of 20 million. Right, so we're talking about 1 or 2 million people basically are taking antidepressants,
and they need it. They rightfully need it. I mean, their life would not be good without it, and they would be normal without it. And I'm behind that 100%. Mm-hmm. But it's so abused. It's so abused by such people that want to take them, turn them into a dummy state, try to fix them, and then they got to wean them off the antidepressants.
My biggest criticism actually has been that I think that I look back in the 80s when. There were very limited medications, and when I first got into the business, and probably the leading antidepressant I think was at the time Tofranil, which was just an almost evil drug with the side effects, dry mouth, sexual dysfunction, tingling all over, and it was only prescribed to people that had major depression, true major depression. People that were actively suicidal or tried to kill themselves.
That authentically needed it.
Right. And, but it was still a terrible medication. The effect of taking it was, devastating, but yet it was still better than people feeling suicidal. Fast forward through Prozac and now even up into where we have a multitude of new drugs coming on the market all the time. And I have to say, from working with patients, that the amount of side effects, the potential, like Dr. Koh, one of the psychiatrists that we work with, says he doesn't know how these drugs work. He doesn't know why they work, but occasionally the right one works. And part of the thing is that I think that, it takes a while to get the medication right.
And it's also important to say about Dr. Koh, is that he's very into psychotherapy.
Yeah,
so he's also into very, only using the medicine as
for the right
and as
for the right treatment,
and if needed.
I think part of the issue also is like Chantix and things like this, which is a form of Wellbutrin, I believe, right?
No, that's Zyban.
Oh, Zyban. Sorry. So
wow. You guys know your drugs.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Well, no, I mean I knew that because I tried to use Zyban.
He's
to
a
quit
smoker.
Smoking.
See, he's the real drug addict.
I think that's a great. I think that's something very important what you just said.
Yeah.
Because Wellbutrin came out first as an antidepressant. They found that people taking Wellbutrin
didn't crave smoking.
Right, stopped craving smoking. But they realized that people weren't going to buy Wellbutrin to help them stop smoking.
So they rebranded
They rebranded it as Zyban, and at that time, it might still be, it was the only drug on the market by the FDA that was the same drug with two different names.
Well, there's actually a few drugs like that.
No, at the time, but I'm saying like about 20 years ago.
And there's interesting drugs, like we don't really, like Vistaril, which is an atypical antipsychotic, right, is also an antihistamine.
Which I need because I'm allergic to Benadryl, and I had
that's
no
funny.
idea of this till last week.
Let me just
Okay.
put an end to this conversation in this fashion, okay?
Okay.
There's a guy named Dr. Brzezinski that in 1970 developed a 12 hormonal protocol that cured cancer. The FDA has since sued him 6 times, and each time underhandedly applied for his patents. He's cured inoperable cancer in thousands of patients all over the world, and now he's done the double blind studies, but they only half-assed it though. Pardon my French.
That's okay.
The only instead of using a dozen people or 2 dozen people, they used 8 people and only used a fraction of the protocols. So my point is, the FDA, Federal Drug Administration.
I thought you were going to say something else for a second.
Whoa, boy!
Yeah.
As underhandedly, it's their ball game.
And that's the problem. We don't. I don't think Andrew disagrees with you on that. I don't. I definitely don't.
Look, the last thing I would
right.
ever want to do is have people prescribe something that hurt them.
Yeah.
And I think one of the major problems is that a lot of these medications are so readily available, and that the training for regular general practitioners who are doling out most of these medications is insignificant to that of a psychiatrist who has...
Well, psychiatrists have been doing it differently now, too. All of them prescribe drugs. If you go see a psychiatrist, you get a drug. It's that simple.
By the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Clean Radio Live. This isn't the... Lexapro line, and we're in the studio tonight with Bradley Quick, author of The Quick Fix. An amazing voice, by the way. I said to you the other day when I met you, sound like Lance Henriksen. I don't know if people know who that is, but he does sound like him. And we're having actually a great discussion. This is
You can't say... I don't know who people know who that is, and then not let people know who that is.
He was on the show Millennium.
There you go.
I mean, he's one of those guys that's been all over. But I think it's important to say we might, as heated as the discussion about this could get, and I think it's amazing that we're having the discussion because I think for so long the discussion hasn't been.
No, it's been under the mat. Yeah.
And that's one of the things, and I know, I could honestly speak for Andrew right now. It's one of the things you enjoy is discussion. You could one day say, I stand corrected, I'm wrong.
I always believe I'm wrong, and I'm always
Right.
trying to prove that, whatever theory I'm working with right now is the best one I got, and I'm trying to always look for something better. It's clear that we haven't solved these problems.
Right.
There is no way for us to cure addiction that I know of.
Right.
There is no way to relieve
No, but
ourselves of depression and mental health.
We can show people whether their upline or their doctor or their counselor has them eating antidepressants or whatnot. We can show them that they actually have a passion and purpose in this world. And if we can show them that and we can inspire them.
Right, but once again, that's not a cure.
No, well, of course, wait, time out. It is a cure in the long run. It is a cure. Because if I can plug
if they
you,
start drinking and using again, it's not a cure.
Wait a second. Whoa. If I okay, I got so much I want to say here.
Say it.
Let's
Say
just
it.
Take your time.
Alcoholics Anonymous is 100% successful. Anybody that works,
I disagree.
Anybody that works that program 100% doesn't go drink and
I
use.
disagree. I know a lot of people have worked that program 100% and have
Well,
ended up
but
relapsing.
not part of the program. Drinking and using is not
There's a
part
part
of
of
that
the there's a
program.
part of the subconscious that can control people. They can become dissociative and start using. And even though they fully followed AA, don't get me wrong. I think that AA is a great program and it served a lot of people very well. But it doesn't work for all people. People that have really bad mood disorders or are psychotic and schizophrenic can't function to the point where they can actually hear the message of AA.
They would fall into that 2% that actually need the drug.
Well, I'd say,
so that's fair to say, but I think it's important.
But he's saying 100%
Right.
are going to be cured if they go to AA, and that's not fair.
No. I didn't say go to AA. I didn't say
follow
that at all. I
the-
said work a program because working a program does not call for drinking and using.
Right, but that doesn't.
It does not.
My point is that doesn't address the whole population. The whole population isn't capable of doing that. Unfortunately, I wish they
if
could.
everybody in the world were to work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, this world would be a better place.
Yeah, but
a schizophrenic who's walking on the street and smokes crack just to feel normal, right? And
Right,
lives
but
off,
he's one-
wait,
but
and
he's
lives
one
off
of the
their
2%.
SSI
That's
check.
your 2%.
But
That's
he's-
your
But
2%,
it's a pure example of how what I'm saying is that doesn't work.
but here's-
There's people that you can't say that AA is the solution
Right.
to all
Well,
the
no,
problems
here's-
with
here's
drug
the
and
whole-
alcohol
here's
abuse,
the whole point.
and that
Here's-
we can't address everybody in the
Here's the whole
population.
point.
Wow.
What
We've
that
gotta-
allows you to do, excuse me for a second, what that allows you to do, the 12 steps, is uncover, discover, and discard what's haunting you.
Right.
To open yourself up to what can be so that you can get rid of what you think you know and be inspired intuitively by with a thought or decision by the powers that be in the universe.
If the average IQ is 100 in the United States, right? That's the IQ scale, right? So, you got your
Except
average...
mine's about 25. I think.
Well, you can read, so no. But,
It's like, right, the SAT score
But
as long as
so,
you get-
I mean, we've got a huge portion of people in the United States. Just do the math. I mean, 40% of America probably falls in the second lower standard deviation or whatever, right? Or no, that'd be 2.5%. I'm an idiot. Anyway, but the point
Get out
is,
your
that
calculator.
It's your flat tire.
Yeah,
That's
it's my
right.
flat tire
It's-
threw me
yeah.
off. But there's at least 40 million people in the United States that probably don't function at above a 4th grade level.
Okay.
And I don't think they're capable of reading and understanding the message of Alcoholics Anonymous.
The fact
But
of the
they're capable of
matter is-
opening beer.
The fact of the matter is, anybody that would go and adopt another method of living, one other than their own, it will change their life for the better.
Okay, I think the better way of saying what you're saying, Bradley, because I don't disagree. I'm a sober member of of the 12 steps. I've been there for better part of 17 years. I truly believe in Alcoholics Anonymous and if you work the steps, but I'm also a firm believer that it says this might not be enough. And I'm saying,
Of course, well,
right? But I think that would be better.
It leads you to the
Right,
road.
but I'm saying I think that would be better to preface it saying, or just my opinion is saying, for those who they hit a wall, they've worked the 12 steps, and one of my favorite lead singers was the lead singer of Boston, and I know we're coming up on a break. But he was sober
Bradley,
25
yeah.
years,
Right.
and he blew his brains out.
Let's quickly give out the number for
Yeah.
people to call, and then just let people know we'll be back
Yeah.
here soon. Go ahead.
The number is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We're in the studio tonight with Bradley Quick. You're listening to cleanradio.com, a lively conversation. The discussion continues at cleanradio.com.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? Clean Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to Clean Treatment Center, that's clean with a K, cleantreatmentcenter.com.
Welcome back to Clean Radio. We have a very dynamic and exciting guest, Bradley Quick, and we're debating the merits and I guess pitfalls of potential medication and also the value of AA and how to reach people with problems with drug and alcohol problems as well as issues with mental health. Why don't we jump right into a call, guys? How about that?
Yes.
Sounds great.
Okay, we got Veronica on the line from Pasadena. Veronica, welcome to Clean Radio.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. This kind of sparked a question. I recently lost my mom, and it was a kind of a long, drawn-out illness. And when she passed away, I kind of went through a lot of the mourning and depression. I can't seem to shake it, and I recently went to my doctor, who wants to put me on Prozac, and I don't know. I've heard people have addictive issues with it. I don't know if it is. I've never been on anything like that. I don't know if it's going to help. I'm kind of scared of getting addicted to some type of prescription medicine. And
Okay, well, I don't know of any evidence that Prozac's addictive. I think that people could develop a psychological addiction to feeling that they need it to be happy. Generally, though, I mean, obviously you're experiencing grief from the loss, which, is unfortunate, and I feel bad for you about that. Nobody wants to go through that, and I know that can be very painful. There's a natural process to dealing with grief, and I would encourage you to try and work through your grief on your own prior to taking medication. But that being said, Prozac has been shown to be effective in dealing with giving people a short window to work through grief if they're at the point where they're in a vegetative state, or they're considering suicide, or they're feeling so depressed that they basically can't function. So if you're that level of dysfunction where you're not able to actually function to then work through a grief process, then antidepressant generally can give people a window to sort of get them elevated to the point where they can actually naturally work through their grief process. But you shouldn't take Prozac thinking that it's going to be the cure for your grief or that it's going to solve all your problems.
There's John James started the Grief Recovery Institute several years ago. It's located in the Valley, in the San Fernando Valley. It's the Grief Recovery Institute, and it's for exactly this. He lost his wife, his kids, or something back in the day, and was working the 12 steps, but that wasn't working. So he went and we did a lot of research and found methodologies and processes for getting through grief. So the Grief Recovery Institute, I would definitely suggest that. And just make a note that Prozac or any of those mind stimulating or altering substances, consider it like cigarettes. It takes the edge off, but the edge is still going to be there unless you work through that. The physician's desk reference says that people should stay on Prozac, particularly in drugs like that, for 6 weeks. 6 weeks to get through and over the hump.
Well, they're saying that it actually doesn't become effective. SSRIs, which Prozac is a subset of, which basically deal with, maintaining more serotonin in your brain.
Right.
And when people are going through grief or depression, there's less serotonin in their neural gaps. We know that.
Right.
And we know that Prozac actually increases that to normal or higher sometimes than normal levels. The reason they say 6 weeks is because for the drug actually to be clinically effective, it takes 6 weeks for it to really fully onset. So when you take Prozac, if you just take one Prozac, it's not going to really do anything.
Right.
But you actually have to take it regularly for 6 weeks to actually see the full clinical benefits of the medication.
Veronica, did you write that down? The Grief Recovery Institute.
Yeah, I did. Grief Recovery Institute.
Yeah, John James. You tell John James I said hello.
John James. Okay, and then
It's JJ.
So, if you're saying okay, I kind of didn't want to go on it, but I do feel like I'm depressed and my bills got behind. I don't want to.
Bradley's probably going to reach across the table here and start strangling me, but I think that these medications are fairly safe. A lot of people disagree with me on this. If you're under the proper supervision of the right doctor, they can be life savings. Medications. I've seen too many people slip into depression and commit suicide or try to commit suicide or have a large part of their life fall apart because they haven't been able to cope. There's no shame in not being able to cope. And I think the fact that mental health has progressed to the point, the treatment of mental health has progressed to the point where we actually do have these tools available in addition to other tools. That's a great thing. The one thing that Bradley and I will probably agree with, I hope, here is that therapy alone has a fairly poor outcome and medication alone has a pretty miserable outcome, but the two combined actually have the highest outcome, and more people get better by using a combination of both medication and therapy.
I also think the most important thing to say tonight is to people listening, if you decide to, go to your psychiatrist and you're on a med and you want to go off, don't just stop taking them tonight, because that will have the worst reaction you could possibly have.
Never make any decision without discussing it with your doctor.
But if you do decide that you want to go off, go see your psychiatrist, because you need to be tapered off the drug.
Titrate.
Right. Please don't just decide tomorrow I'm chucking out my, and I think that's a huge thing that people should talk about, is that going to see a psychiatrist should be like getting married.
Right.
Okay, you go on a few dates with different psychiatrists. Find one that you want to be with for a long time and then you want to marry. And then if you don't get along after a couple of years and you need to get divorced, it's okay. But don't just jump into bed with the first person you see and say, "Hey, now."
Well, Veronica, if you go to, do you have a computer at home?
Yes.
If you go to www.clean, coolchangeradio.com. That's coolchangeradio.com. And look up Grief Recovery Institute. There's several interviews with John James and his fellows at the Grief Recovery Institute. And you won't even have to leave home. You get a lot of questions answered about grief and about the process they take you through and the benefits and wonderful testimonials of people that have done that.
I mean, one of the things that I think is really unfortunate is that our society has become much more isolated. You know, people don't really stick together as families anymore.
Right.
There's no sense of community. That's one of the great things I actually like about AA is that the fellowship is so incredible.
You can go anywhere in the world, as I have, and walk into any meeting without even speaking the language, and you're home.
Yeah.
It's like being at home. It's like it's such kinship.
Yeah, and I think, you know, grief is one of those things that tends to make people want to isolate and shut down. And it's something that you need to express, and you need to share those emotions with other people.
And I think that's something,
and work through it.
It's an amazing thing what Veronica might be going through, because you're going through grief, you're going through problems, and yet you feel bad about talking to people. And it's an amazing phenomenon of the mind to me. All this, you know, you feel the only way you're going to get out of grief is by dealing with it and talking about it.
Well, we're social beings,
right?
And society is isolating us
Right.
more and more. Or we have this artificial
Right.
sort of socialization through Facebook
Right.
and the internet, which isn't really communicating with people. It's sort of just sharing a few brief thoughts. It's not real
I think the message here is get
communication.
into a community
Yeah.
that focuses on the issue you're confronted with at this time, which is obviously grief.
And if you need to take something, you need to take something, but just because you're taking it, it doesn't mean you don't need the community either. And I think it's important because, you know, you wrote a book called The Quick Fix. Every day you're driving down the highway, you see the ads for 1-800, you know what, to lose weight. People think, I'm going to put this band on, and there goes the issues.
No, you got to have the discipline.
Right, and most of the people that put the bands on and don't get therapy with it at the same time and don't deal with the issues that got them like that in the first place will have gained the weight back.
And it kills some people.
Yeah.
All right, Veronica, I hope we helped you out. Thank you so much for calling
Yeah,
Clean
sorry
Radio.
about your mother.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Good luck,
Okay,
sweetie.
bye-bye.
And if you just tuned in, you're listening to Clean Radio Live. That was Veronica. We're in the studio. That's Clean Radio Live. You can find us on Facebook at Clean Radio. That's Clean with a K. Like us, because Andrew and I really need
Validation.
positive validation.
They want
because
you to be their
yeah.
friend.
In
Yes.
the artificial community
Yes,
of the internet.
of the internet, because you know, we don't have many friends, Andrew and I, and
Just-
we got each other.
we got each other.
And you know,
I did take you to the movies.
Yeah, we
last
did 2
week.
weeks ago. We had a date to
2
see
weeks
the
ago,
Hunger
that's right.
Games,
That's funny.
and I've had a little bit, by the way, revisionist history. I think I might have enjoyed the movie. I might be going with my girlfriend to it again, but you know, again, it's like. Get out. And I think that's the
Right.
biggest message we're saying on the show is like, there's a life to be had out there.
Yeah, and you know, depression and grief and these things, they make you not want to engage. They
Right.
make you want to sit. They make you withdraw.
And isolate.
People
yeah.
need to take, you know, they need to realize
Well, I
that.
have a great little theory for that. Is take the body, the mind will follow.
Right.
Take the body, the mind, because the mind's saying eat something, stay at home, isolate, feel terrible. But if you just chant it a few times, take the body, the mind will follow. Take the body, the mind will follow. You know what's in your best interest. Just go, whether it be the gym, whether it be a meeting, a group, a community, anything. Knock
And
on
you
a
always
friend's
feel
door.
better afterwards.
Of course.
Yeah.
Looking back, you see it was just a cloud of dust and nothing to be scared of.
My big thing that I was taught when I was fairly young, which I've always thought was one of the best pieces of advice for me, that I've always
Look
used
both
my whole
ways
life.
before you cross the street.
Well, besides, luckily I didn't have to be taught that one.
Put an apron on.
But was that, you know, look at what your problems are for that day. Like, what are the 3 big issues you have to deal with, and do them first thing in the morning. Because then you're not worrying about them and thinking about them all day. You get them out of the way.
Right.
And it's just amazing just following that simple advice. As difficult it is to get up and deal with those things first thing, it gives you so much free time and relieves so much. You know, you can procrastinate for months or years on one issue.
That brings up fear, though. Looking at the issues generally brings up fear. I mean, this may happen, that may, all the expectation. Do what you fear most, and you control fear. And if you see that fear was nothing but, like I said, that cloud of dust with nothing to be scared of at all. It's just the expectation, because all of our insignificance comes out. All of our character defects comes out when we think about those things.
Well, to quote the great Steven Seagal from Above the Law, the anticipation of death is worse than death itself.
It's just the fact that you had that as a quote. I
It's,
mean, where do we go with that? That's going to be like another Judaism.
Well, it's a Steven Seagalism.
Yeah, but it's Judaism.
No, but
that you would quote a Steven Seagalism.
Andrew, you were a really good. When I was a kid, right? And I'm sure
you're older than a kid. Yeah?
I'm a little bit older.
He doesn't. Well, not
well,
physically. He's older.
I'm very much like yes. I won't even
You're
go there.
Still a young man, baby.
Yes, that's why I have to hang out with older people always. Because if you hang out with younger people, then you're just the older man.
That's right.
When I got into the 12 steps, I was the youngest kid in the room. Now I'm like, I could be parents to people, and I'm only 35. But
You're
when you were
35,
yeah, I know.
I know he looks 50, right?
I was going to say.
Oh my God, do I really? No.
This is the positive type of community.
How come I always feel worse? How come I always feel worse after the show? And but when you were a kid and you wouldn't study for that test, and you knew the test, and for 2 weeks you knew the test was in 2 weeks.
Oh, the last night.
And for 2 weeks you're not studying, but every night you're thinking about the fact that you're not
when
studying.
You could be studying.
When you could have just studied and gotten it out of the way. And I think that's a great, what you're talking about, both of you, about a good lesson for life is do the task in front of you. And when you do that type of stuff, it simplifies everything.
I don't know, Bradley. So tell me a little bit more directly about what you're involved in. I mean, you've written this book,
It's the Quick Fix, a simple process for health, healing, and happiness. It can be, you can get it at bradleyquick.com, bradleyquick.com. I also do a radio show on Cool Change Radio called The Quick Fix with Bradley Quick, where I interview top-notch authors, experts, specialists, doctors of all kinds, and we talk about health, wellness, fitness, nutrition, psychology, weight loss, psychodrama, psychotherapy, sex, God, spirituality. We talk about all that stuff and bring out the best of solutions for people.
So what got you interested in this general field? I mean, you seem to have a particular predilection towards dealing with addiction and
good word.
I got to get out the dictionary after this is over. But
a fondness.
Yeah, I've been sober. I've been sober 25 years.
Okay.
And I'm sober due to a profound spiritual experience I had in 1987. And,
tell me about that.
Well, I was standing on the corner of 6th and Westlake, downtown Los Angeles, which was really Skid Row in 1987. I weighed 248 pounds. Had a pair of navy blue sweats on, tied up with a white rope around my waist, and had no shirt on, a towel around my neck, an ace bandage wrapped up and down my left arm to hide all the tracks from shooting all the cocaine in all those sleazy motels and abandoned buildings, and a leg of a table in my right hand. That was my Bam Bam stick. And there I stood, lonely, separate, different, and afraid. Lonely, separate, different, and afraid.
How did you get to that point?
Well, by the time I was 8 years old, 4 of my brothers and my only sister had died of cystic fibrosis.
Oh, wow.
Well, when I was 9, I had an accident on a bicycle, and I ended up being knocked out for 3 weeks in a coma for a month. When I got out of it, I couldn't walk or talk. I was paralyzed completely, and it was bad stuff. See, but look at even further back. I started first grade at 3 years old. I spoke 3 languages by 4. I was swimming in Olympic pools at 4.
But then you had a lot of trauma.
I seemed to overcome that. I mean, I was still excelling, right? And then I had that accident and just wiped everything out. And so then after I had that accident, I had to go to physical therapy and speech therapy and vision therapy and all these therapies to try and integrate back into society. But then they were feeding me a drug called Dilantin, which is an anticonvulsatory, right? So I'm already subconsciously taking...
Were you having seizures?
They didn't want me to have seizures.
Okay.
So I was already taking something from the outside to fix my insides. Subconsciously, I just continued doing that. So then I found cigarettes and crosstops and LSD and marijuana, and off to the races I went. 7 drunk drivings later, 4 counts of attempted murder later, I ended up standing in the corner of 6th and Westlake, downtown Los Angeles. My objective in life at that point was to get loaded.
Right.
That was my only coping mechanism. The fact of the matter is, when people start drinking and using on a consecutive basis, when they become dependent upon that, it's the way they cope, and their natural coping mechanisms cease to mature at whatever age that becomes dependence.
Right. There's an arrested development at the point of addiction.
So you may be chronologically one age, but you're a different age emotionally.
Right.
And so I was behind the 8 ball anyway when I started doing this, coming out of that accident.
No metaphor, no pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was you
were over the 8 ball.
Yeah. Funny.
Oh my God.
Funny
yeah.
Slap that man.
Gong.
So,
Yeah.
So the point was that I was behind the, way backtracking anyway. And so I was standing there at 28 years old. It may have been 12 years old or 13 years old, developmentally at best.
Right.
And so all I did, I lived to drink and use to live. That's how I coped with all of life. And then I was at this one day, I'd been up for 3 or 4 days shooting this coke and drinking and smoking cigarettes and being just a stupid bum. And I had no more money, no more nothing. Couldn't pawn anything, couldn't sell anything, couldn't do anything to get any more. And anybody that's been that high on stimulants knows that coming down is a biatch. I mean, it's just not worth it at all.
As Tom Petty says, it's the hardest thing.
It is. And so I got back in this car I was driving, drove back in this place I was staying at in right off the Sunset Strip. It was really nice. Had newspaper on the windows and tape on the peephole because I knew those guys were out there and looking in. And
A little paranoia.
that's right. And they had blood on the walls and the stains in the carpet from
Track marks.
shooting the veins and missing and
Blowing out the needles.
dirty syringes everywhere and it's just filthy.
You know what's scary? Some addicts listening to this right now might be going, that sounds good.
Jonesing.
Could be
They're jonesing.
triggering.
Yeah.
That's right. So I walked in and the phone rang, and I picked up the phone, and it was Edward Kim. Edward Kim was my father's houseboy in the Korean War, and he raised me as a child. And he said, "Bradley, how are you?" And in this emotional state I was in, I began to cry. And I told him exactly how I was. And within 45 minutes, he was at that apartment. Within 24 hours, my mother was there. Now, this is the same woman that I battered. Was that
a first time of honesty in a long time for you?
Yeah, well, I'd never been honest with anybody. I was always a victim.
Right, you were a victim and you were covering up, and so you weren't actually even getting any help.
I wasn't being vulnerable. I was not being honest. And so they showed up and put me in this place down in Long Beach, Pacific Hospital. And I walked in there, and they're talking all this God crap and all this showing me people loading up syringes, and my heart's getting those little dry rushes. I can't hang with this. And they're finally getting ready to kick me out of this place. My little counselor, Chuck, said, "Bradley, I would suggest you go back to your bunk tonight, hit your knees and touch base with a power greater than yourself, or you're out of here." Well, I looked across the room and saw the exit door. I knew I could walk out that exit door and be lonely, separate, different, and afraid on the streets of Long Beach with nothing but the clothes on my back, no more love, tolerance, or understanding from anybody. Or else I go back to my bunk and hit my knees and try and touch base with this thing I didn't comprehend, understand, or necessarily believe in. I was on my knees praying to this thing called God as my siblings were dying. They died anyway. I had screw that whole idea. But I decided that going back and hit my knees was easier than going out in the streets again. So I got on my knees that night, 9th night of my recovery, and I said the following words. I said, "Hey, bud, help me out, will you? Amen." Which is pretty articulate for a junkie.
It's not bad.
But it was
It pretty much summed it all.
It was a sincere request
Right.
to this thing I didn't comprehend, understand, or necessarily believe in, that I needed some help. I was out of solutions. So I got up and rolled into bed. I woke up the next day.
Or you're out of quick fixes.
That's right.
How long, by the way,
What?
just a quick question, how long before that last fix did it stop working?
Oh, it always worked, but just the time that it worked.
Right,
was short.
right. But
It took more and more.
I never set the syringe down. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
I remember whether it was a prostitute I had in a cheesy motel room or whether I was at wherever I was staying, that syringe never left until the stash was gone.
For people that say, you know what, he deserved that, he was a drug addict, a junkie, and, hanging out with prostitutes and shooting drugs, and, we should just lock him up in jail. What's your thinking to that? What would you say to somebody like that?
I was dependent. I lost the option of doing it and not doing it. Now, people that aren't afflicted with the dis-ease of compulsion and obsession, right? And alcoholism, not alcoholism, those people that don't know about that
Right.
are going to say, well, that's BS, like you said. But people that have that tendency that...
Well, I was quoting someone else. Yeah, I didn't say that directly.
the dis-ease, the people that have that dis-ease of more
Right.
will understand that.
Yeah.
And so that day went by, and my perception began to change. How I viewed things began to change that 10th day. So I got on my knees that 10th night of my recovery and said the following words. I said, "Hey, bud, pretty good. Keep it up. Amen." Got up and rolled into bed. I woke up the next day, and my entire perception of life changed. You know, and then I got through the first 3 steps of the program in that place. And
people say that my entire perception of life changed. Can you try and be more specific
I'll
to
tell
people
you.
that really just? I mean, it becomes cliched almost, and I don't like that. I'd like to have people have a better idea of what that
because
really
I think that's a
means.
great point, because I say it all the time too, that something happened and I don't exactly say what it was that happened. So what did happen?
What happened is, my next book, by the way, is going to be called Change Your Perception, Change Your Life. Okay, the world doesn't change that dramatically. What changes is our perception of the world. Okay, that's the information that we're willing to see without clouding it with our own fears and expectations and self-talk. Okay, and things begin to make sense to me. Things begin to make sense to me. Now, I had 0 coping mechanisms, 0 coping. So I was inspired with spirit, and all I knew was love. That's all I knew. It was really quite pathetic, but all I knew was love, and everything began to make sense to me. And I had the inspiration. I was in spirit, inspired all of a sudden to take the actions which led me to a new way of life.
When we look at poverty and we look at other social ills, and a lot of it is like that lack of exposure to another possibility. I was doing some work with a famous musician who I won't mention, but we took a bunch of kids from Watts who had never been to the beach, believe it or not. And Watts is 20-minute bus ride to the beach, the ocean, and took a bunch of kids down the ocean, and they couldn't believe it. 20 minutes away. These are like 10, 11-year-olds.
Right.
So the whole idea is to broaden the spectrum through which people perceive themselves, their role, their objectives, and those of others. If we can do that, if we can instill passion and purpose in your life, whether it's through the book, one of my mini radio shows, or however one of my speeches or seminars or workshops, that's the whole goal.
I like how it's all equal.
By the way, if you just tuned in, you're listening to the Bradley Quick Show. No, just joking. You're listening to Klean. You're listening to Klean Radio Live. That's Klean with a K.
Bradley's being a very good sport.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Right? I'm enjoying this.
You could call. He could call us at 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. I saw it in the bathroom. And we're in the studio tonight with Mr. Bradley Everything Quick. And here, and we're running out of time. We want to thank you so much. How do people find what's a good
www.coolchangeradio.com. That's coolchangeradio.com. Or, of course, go to bradleyquick.com. The book's called The Quick Fix, a simple process for health, healing, and happiness.
Give us your last, golden words of wisdom.
If you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting. If you want something different, you got to do something different. Find a group, find a community, and adopt their method of living, and it will change your life forever.
Very cool. And I think it's important, Andrew, say what you said again about the thing with the Watts, because I think that's an incredible story.
Yeah, just, that it's amazing that we take for granted that we think everybody has seen the world and nature and beauty and things that happen that are good in the world. And there's people that are very isolated, and whether it be, from poverty and living in Watts and not actually being able to get to an ocean 20 minutes away.
They were inspired. So they were in spirit.
So they were given an opportunity that poverty and social injustice had neglected to provide for them.
So basically what we're saying
from us as a community.
Right.
So basically what we're saying is, if you're sitting at home and you're going through a rough time, get out of your house. Give somebody a call. Tell them what you're going through. There is hope out there.
There's so many things that people can do. You'll never be able to do all the great things you could do in your life.
We want to wish people again a happy Eastover. Happy Eastover.
And,
that's for the.
I like it. You've created
that's for the intermarriages,
right?
And that's for the Jews and the married non-Jews. We'd like to wish everybody happy Easter, happy Passover, happy whatever it is you're celebrating. If you're going through a rough time, give us a call. Give somebody a call.
Check out cleanradio.com. Check out cleantreatmentcenter.com. And Bradley Quick, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you, sir, very much. Thank you,
guys.
Real pleasure.
Thank you. You're a good man. And the discussion continues at cleanradio.com.
Are you struggling with an addiction that's ruining your life? Want to have a confidential conversation with a professional that will immediately assist you? Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs and would like a free drug testing kit and consultation? Klean Treatment Center is standing by right now to help those with addictions and the people who care about them. Call 888-601-6040. That's 888-601-6040. Or go to Klean Treatment Center, that's Klean with a K, cleantreatmentcenter.com.